oh, I'm gonna do this 12-week diet and I'm gonna get long-term results. Like, where's this come from? Because I hate the word diet. I never use the word diet, but it's you use it a lot of times there. But again, using the study, I get that. So I just want to unpick this word because I know again that you are in agreement with this.
For sure.
Let's have a conversation about this.
So the word diet is just driven by industry, right? It's driven by this marketing of a product that will get you where you want to go. Now, whether or not that product is actually going to do that doesn't seem to matter, right? It seems like because again, the goal is different. The goal for a lot of these industry folks is to sell you something.
Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to an episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and today we are talking about obesity. More specifically, we're talking about fad diets and why they always fail. And the man today, I've caught him completely off guard. He is literally in the middle of working. He's busy seeing clients. So he's basically, I didn't even tell him I was doing it on video. So again, I hold my hands up to this, but I've said to him, I explained to him, we're not here to judge his background. We're here to judge the information, actually learn from this man and his experience. So my guest today is Dr. David Prologo, and he's a dual board certified interventional radiologist and obesity medicine specialist. Dr. Prologo has spent more than 20 years specifically analysing the phenomenon of diet attraction. Why do diets always fail? More importantly, when they fail, why do we blame the patients for it being their fault? So again, really interesting topic, which I think a lot of people can relate to. Going on a diet, it fails, and then people being blamed when it's like, well, that makes absolutely no sense. So Dr. Prologo, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for adding the disclaimer about my office and my appearance. We're just right in the middle of a busy clinical week here, but I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. Like I said before, like it adds to the authenticity. Like it's a case of like you're talking about something that you're actually living, which is the cool thing about this. Is like you're not just someone that sits at home and talks about this stuff. Like you're actually there in the midst, seeing patients as well. So it's something that, again, I'm really interested in talking about. I've said this to you before, like my background is personal training, fat loss specialist. And again, I'm doing my research into you. I think we're gonna have a really interesting conversation today, but more importantly, just add some value. And also more importantly on that, some clarity for people, because there's so much confusion in this space. Hence why having an expert like you and someone like me that actually has done this for a living. So we've got two experts that might not necessarily see eye to eye on some stuff, but the goal is to add value to help ultimately the listeners. So I'm really looking forward to this. But can you take my audience back to how you originally got into this, like weight loss management, obesity, sort of like how did this all come about?
Sure. So it's a pretty unique arrangement. I went to medical school and did my postgraduate training, which is where you decide what specialty you're going to be, in this specialty called interventional radiology. And what that is we use imaging guidance like CAT scanners and MRIs and so on to guide needles into the body. And we do this for a lot of different reasons. We do it to manage trauma, to diagnose cancer, to manage cancer pain. That's what I'm doing today. That's why I'm busy and look like this. But at the same time, I pursued an obesity medicine certification so that I could also practice obesity medicine, because I became enthralled, almost obsessed with this idea that people were all failing these diets. And somehow the entire world was looking at this, documenting it. We all know it, right? We all know that people are trying these diets and failing, and then that we're not doing anything about it. So I couldn't understand if it were any other condition. If it were heart disease, if it were cancer, even if it were a rash that you had on your skin, if the solution I was offering wasn't working for anybody, or 95% of people couldn't tolerate the cream I gave them for the rash, and so didn't get help from what I was saying, I think we would change our approach, right? We would change our approach. So that's why I got the obesity medicine certification, and that's where I did some of the studies that we did that I think maybe we'll talk about down the line. So that's sort of a long answer to say that I'm a uniquely double board certified physician who practices in a very unique space for that reason.
So what can we just define here when it comes to the obesity thing? Because we're going to be using the word weight loss. And I want to just sort of define the difference between weight loss and fat loss, because I think some people sometimes get that confused. So I just wanted, like, when we're talking today, what specifically are we going to be talking about? Because obviously we know that obviously in order to lose fat, yes, you have to lose some weight, but there is that slight nuance of fat loss versus the weight loss.
Can we
clear that up?
Yeah, absolutely. I would even answer that question by backing up another step and saying that our approach, even in the beginning, is not to think about your weight. And again, I don't know how you feel about this, so we'll see. But to not think about your weight at all. But what we have to do instead is change our bodies before we're ever going to have any success with weight loss or fat loss. Certainly, there's a difference there, and I think most people are interested in weighing less. But if you ask them why, some people will say it's so they have less risk of health problems down the road, which is legitimate. But most people just want to look better and feel better. And that follows from selective fat loss, if you can pull it off. But I would argue that unless you do it that way, you won't be successful.
That's my biggest thing. It's like I say to people, if you've got two choices between the first option is you hit your target weight, you look exactly the same, wearing the same size clothes, or option B is you're fitting into that pair of jeans you want to fit into, you're looking amazing, you're feeling amazing, but you weigh the same. What would you pick? And they always say, I pick the second one. Because it's not specifically about the number. You're just associating, when I hit that number, I will look a certain way. And I'm glad you said that. It's like, when I weigh this, I will feel happy. So it's interesting. This is where I was, again, this further on down the line here, but my approach to fat loss. So again, we can sort of, I think my audience maybe knows this, is for me, the analogy I use is a bridge analogy. So people on one side, they're trying to get to the side. And people like Indiana Jones style wooden bridges. So people spend all their time, energy, effort, and money on the wooden slats, on nutrition plans, training programs, supplements, etc., etc. They spend thousands. But all you've then got is these unique planks of wood that cost you thousands floating in midair. So you've then got to attach the rope to it. The rope is the adherence. The adherence rope holds it all together. But you have to have the 4 pillars at either side, which for me hold the bridge together. And that is your mental health, your mindset, and your actual relationship with yourself, and potentially unpicking some underlying beliefs that cause you to get there. So that's my approach, to throw it completely out there before we go into what we're talking about here. But for me, I think my approach has always been, you have to work on the mindset side of things in order for the body to sort of follow. But I know you're of the opinion, the physical first. So this is why I was like, we're going to get some. So what's your thoughts on that?
So first of all, I love the bridge analogy. I use it all the time. And so as you started to describe that, I thought, boy, I'm really going to like this guy, because that makes a lot of sense, right? But so 2 things I'll say in response to that. The first one is I also write and talk a lot about this bridge, right? This expanse. And on one side, you're saying on one side is where you want to be, and on the other side is where you are. I change it a little bit and say that there are actually a group of people that live on one side of this bridge and a group of people that live on the other side. And the people who live on side A are what I call the always lean people, right? They've always been lean. They've never had to go through a transformation. They live over here and they eat clean and they run, and it's a pleasant and fun experience for them, and they exercise and they go to the gym and they want to and they look forward to it. And it's all very fun and great. On the other side of the bridge, you have people who want to make a change. These are your people who are 250 pounds, 5'5", and they wish to make a change, but they look across that expanse at the people on the other side, and they say to themselves, I could never be over there because I hate eating clean and I hate exercise. And every single time I try it, it's a miserable, terrible experience. And so this disconnect is created, right? And it works the other way also, which is the always lean folks who enjoy all of this cannot understand why the people on the other side can't come across, because in their experience, this is all quite wonderful. So who wouldn't want to do this, right? But the disconnect is created because the people on this side, they have a terrible time with this. It's not fun. It's miserable. It's like nails on a chalkboard to them. It's a terrible experience. So like you, I aim to get people from one side to the other, because on the other side, I don't want to get you there because on the other side, your body composition is different, which it would be. But I want to get you on the other side because once it's fun, you don't need me anymore. Once it's an enjoyable thing for you, you'll take off on your own and you'll be independent. And so I wrote an entire chapter in the book. Can I bring up the book?
Yeah, of course can. Yeah.
So I wrote this book called The Catching Point Transformation, and I wrote an entire chapter on exactly what you're talking about, getting from one side to the other. But the mistake that everyone makes is that you cannot go directly from one side to the other. If you try that without building your bridge, you're just going to fall, right? And that's what people do over and over and over again. They decide on Monday that they're going to go to the other side of the bridge where all these happy, lean people live, right? And they set off for that, just not seeing the expanse, just seeing their goal on the other side. And they start off towards it and boom, fall right down to the bottom of the cliff or whatever is below the bridge. And so unless you figure out a way to build that bridge, which I call the catching point, which is that amount of material and change that you need in your body before it will be fun. Until you get that amount of change, you'll just continue to fall off the bridge. And so just one quick analogy to illustrate what I mean. If you decided tomorrow that you wanted to be a cardiac surgeon, you want to be a heart surgeon, right? And I said, well, hey, I've great news for you. I have a list of steps that I do when I do heart surgery. Here they are, right? And I'd give them to you. Just like the Always Lean folks give their list of things to do, right? If you took that list and tried to do surgery on Monday, which is usually when people start their diets on Monday, if you try to do surgery on Monday, you're going to fail, right? And why are you going to fail? Because you're missing that preparatory work. You're missing medical school and the base knowledge that you need to be able to do that surgery safely. So you have to spend that time getting your medical degree, and then you can take my list and do it. Same thing here. You have to spend a critical amount of time until you get to that catching point, during which time you probably won't lose weight. You might not even look different. But once you get there, then you'll be successful. Then you'll be successful. But you have to make the changes first, which are not glorious and not necessarily fun in the beginning.
So we very much work in a similar way. This is my thing. That's my thing is I call it boiling the kettle. So we put all the things in the fat loss kettle. So basically, again, nutrition guidance, training program, and we stick it in the fat loss kettle, and we honor the saying, "A watch kettle never boils." So we turn the kettle on, and then I focus all my attention on working on people's mindset, relationship with themselves. Because once you fix that, again, as you said there, the preparation work, the medical school stuff, the kettle's already boiled. And again, you may have lost, I don't know, 5-10 pounds, but that wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't focusing on that. The goal was actually focusing on, let's just sort your life out and let's just get you in this good headspace so that actually you will want to do it. Again, as you said, you'll want to do it because it's fun for you. I'd never really, again, that sounded very militant. I never try and make it fun because my thing is like, if you're seeing results and you my thing is understanding. If you understand something, my belief in why fad diets fail is because people don't understand basic nutrition, because these people that sell the fad diets want people confused. So they have to keep going through the cycle of buying their products. Whereas if you actually educate people, it's really simple, it's really easy, it's really basic, it's not glamorous, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. But all the businesses go out of business. And this is what I say to people.
Yeah, you and I completely agree on that point for sure. And unfortunately, those folks who are with the loudest microphone, right? Which is why I thank you for allowing me to talk here.
And the leanest body as well. The loudest microphones, normally the leanest bodies. Yeah.
They're trying not to say they're all bad people, but their primary goal usually is not to help the dieter; it's to sell something, right? So their primary goal, like you said, is to keep everybody dependent, is a little bit confused and dependent. And you continue to come back to this. But I know you're going to agree with this analogy. Imagine if it was a car business. Imagine if instead of weight loss products, it was a car business and people came and you sold them a car. And then because they needed to get from A to B across our distance, say, and the car didn't start and the car didn't work, right? How long would they be in business? But what has happened instead is the weight loss industry has convinced the consumer, the person who would buy the car in the other analogy, that it's their fault the car doesn't work. So then when they come back and say, hey, look, I bought this new car, but it doesn't work, they say, you must not really want it. You must not really want to get across that expanse, or you would start the car. Like, no, I did what you said, and it just doesn't work, right? But so they've convinced all these consumers that it's their fault that when they buy this product, it doesn't end up working. So they just want you to keep coming back, like you said. Yeah. Now, the approach where we differ, although I think we have the same goal and the same mentality, but the way to get there might be a little bit different. On the front end, I would push back a little bit and say that it's the opposite of getting your mindset straight first. I think it's the opposite. I think you change your body first, and your mind will follow, right? And so what the catching point is all about is taking a person who's got a minimal exercise capacity, so they can walk 400 yards, for example, and changing that exercise capacity over the next 6 to 8 months, so that now at the end of that 6 to 8 months, they can accomplish a 200-minute exercise capacity. But as you will understand, but for the audience sake, that's about jogging 30 minutes without stopping, a nice easy jog for 30 minutes. So that once you reach that exercise capacity, then your mind will follow. Once you hit that exercise capacity point, the catching point, then your mind follows. And all of a sudden, you're on board mentally, and your food preferences are altered towards healthy food. And that's an important thing. It's not me who came up with that. There's a professor at Harvard, Lee Kaplan, who told us long ago that an increased exercise capacity alters your food preferences toward healthy foods. So you change your exercise capacity, and now all of a sudden, it's not a struggle to sit there and eat a salad or chicken or whatever it may be. You're actually craving that. You actually want that. So the change to the body then feeds back in what we call a retrograde direction to change your mind. So although you and I are in agreement about getting to a critical point after which this is all fun, less stressful, you don't even need me anymore. You can just go. And some of the patients that we take care of are now taking selfies at the gym and so on. So we both want to get them to that independent state where they're enjoying themselves and no longer need us. But we're taking two paths in for sure.
That's the thing. There's many different ways of skinning a cat. Like my thing is when it comes to anything, like this is what I've had this conversation again. My thing. I think it's very healthy to have a debate about these things. That's the whole premise of me. People don't have conversations. It's just like, well, you're wrong. It's like, well, no, you've done it. You've done it, and you've got results. I've done it and got results. So we're both right. It's just very different. Because I completely agree. So I understand the whole exercise capacity thing. Like I 100% agree. Like once you get to that point of actually seeing that sort of thing, then your mind will follow. I just find for me, if I try and get people to understand, because most people, like I say, again, I think we should also pre-frame this. We're talking mainly about people, I'm assuming, that are very overweight. You said you went to 250 pounds, that kind of vibe. So people, they're very big. Again, I've worked with people of this size as well. They have such low self-esteem, such low just belief in themselves that if they miss one workout, for example, so you're basically saying I'm a fat failure, I'm always going to be fat, then they go stop some chocolate. So my thing with this is I want to unpick, why are you doing that? Because again, there's the thing, I call it the trigger action reward. They've got this trigger, which is a feeling or emotion. So once they've failed, bam, they've got that trigger. Their only action is food to get the reward of feeling comfort. So I like them to become aware of this, aware of their essentially emotional intelligence. So when they mess up trying to build this exercise capacity, they're not going down that rabbit hole of I'm a fat failure, my mum was right, my ex-partner was right. It's a case of, I know what I'm doing now. Right, what's a better choice? And again, it's hard. And the first time they do it, they will smash 5 pizzas. Then the second time it's 4, then it's 3, then it's 2, then it's 1. And each time they're taking back more control, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. So your addition of emotional intelligence is actually making my approach better. So this is great feedback. And what you mentioned about being off on that moment when you fail or when you slip up, right? That's another thing that for whatever reason has been ingrained over the last 50 or 60 years, that this is some kind of perfection exercise, right? Which is completely ridiculous. Is there anything that anyone has accomplished in their life ever that has just gone smoothly from day one to accomplishment, right? It never goes like that. You set off for whatever it might be. Maybe you want to start a podcast, right? Did you start a podcast and it was just amazingly successful on day one and it was a piece of cake all the way through? Of course not. You probably had some problems. Maybe a guest doesn't show up. And so let's use that example. I'm making this up, of course, because we just met, but let's say you embarked on your podcast, which is brilliant and I love, and a guest didn't show up. They were supposed to show up, right? And now, so if this is a weight loss effort, then what you do is you say, well, I just quit. I'll just quit, throw out all the podcast material that I bought and all the stuff that I already recorded. And then a couple Mondays down the road, I'll start again. But you would never do that, right? Even if you were upset by that, you might take a day off or two off and maybe lick your wounds a little bit. And then you would come, the key is this, you would come back in and pick up where you left off. You wouldn't throw everything out and then burn all the papers that you read and then start over. So because you would, of course, never get anywhere that way, because everything is going to throw an obstacle at you no matter what it is. But when it comes to weight loss, our knee-jerk reaction, as soon as something is not perfect, is to chuck the whole thing and start over, with the mindset that this thing has to be perfect every single day. And I don't even know where that came from, but it's pan-applicable. I mean, it's everywhere. I see it over and over and over. And so your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence approach is brilliant, because you bring this simple concept to people's attention. And you say to them, why exactly are we throwing everything out? Because, you know, you had a pizza last night. Why exactly do we think that this has to be perfect when nothing else is?
So there's a thing. I literally, me and Mikey on the radio, at the local radio station last night, and basically I use this analogy here. So what I say to clients is to teach them with this. Again, might help some people you're working with. Pain plus reflection equals progress. So let's say one of my clients, for example, has said, listen. So I'm going to use a prime example. This is literally what happened with one of my clients. This is a true story. Check in last week. His wife went away. And again, this guy, I can't remember his weight. He's American, actually, funny story. And his wife American. I'm not going to say his name, but I potentially messed his weight a bit. Let's say he's 300 pounds. He's of that size. Him and his wife, very, very big. They're both absolutely smashing it. Both lost 60 or 70 pounds each. She's gone away. He's then been by himself, and he's then smashed a pizza. That's what he said in his check-in. So it's like, cool, right. Why have you done that? So the pain. So he felt awful about it, and he knew he's beating himself up. So the pain plus reflection. So he's beating himself up. He's got that pain. Then most people, like we're saying there, will then fixate on that pain, beat themselves up, and eat themselves into another 50 pounds.
Right.
So I said, right, let's reflect on this. I says, what caused you to do this? Was it the fact you were feeling nervous, bored, upset? And we literally broke it down. Why did this happen? What emotional state were you in? And then he came back to me and went, yeah, you're completely right. And then he basically came back to me, and because he'd reflected on it, like, I actually did this because of this. Because the wording that he was using was essentially he talked himself into having a pizza. So by what he said on his check-in, I was like, I basically said, you've talked yourself into doing this. What was going on in your head? And then we went into it. He's like, so then cool. Then he gets the progress. Pain plus reflection equals progress. So next time his wife leaves to go to this event thing, he's going to be like, last time I did this, I was feeling a bit, So this time, I'm going to make sure that I don't talk myself into this. I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to go see my mates. That's the difference with how, but it's like I said, it's that nuanced thing of just that reflection, because it's that reflection that's missing. We can all beat ourselves up. Me and you make mistakes all the time. We're human. We are human. Everyone makes mistakes.
Right.
People at 250 pounds, they feel so shit about themselves anyway.
Right.
It's so easy for them to be like, I'm a failure. And then bam, down it goes. Cascade.
Exactly. So you're providing these folks this insight and understanding, which is going to be like gold for them, right? It's going to be like gold armor against this quit machine, if you will, this thing that usually happens in this cycle that you get caught in. You're giving them something to grab onto and understand. And that insight is brilliant. Wow, it's great. I wish I would have talked to you 5 years ago. You articulate that very well. So in the book, I wrote about this, and I call it there's two things that I said about it. I call people, or I try to get people to implement this thing called the no restart principle, right? And the no restart principle is this thing that when you decide to do this, and then later in the book, we apply this to all kinds of things like marriage and your job and your finances and so it works all in life. But the no restart principle really is that when this day comes that things don't go according to plan, you don't have the option to restart. You don't have the option to quit. You have to understand that this is something that you have engaged in that you can't get out of, right? Like the mob or something like that. And once you have that understanding, then you'll realize that, okay, something went bad today at work, and I don't feel like dieting tonight. In fact, I feel like eating a pizza tonight because of everything that went poorly today at work, and that gives me some comfort. And even if you do that, tomorrow when you wake up, you're still part of this weight loss thing. You can't get out of it, right? So tomorrow when you wake up, you have to pick up where you left off. And in that way, you'll continue on for a much longer period of time. So there was a very famous study done years ago in the Journal of American Medical Association, where they compared all kinds of diets, the Atkins diet, the Ornish diet, the Zone diet, many diets, because people want to know what's the best diet, right? You and I know there is no best diet. There's only adherence to any diet, right? But this was a very prestigious medical journal that did this in a very scientific way, and they compared all of these diets to see who is going to lose the most weight at the year follow-up. And they found that only one thing mattered, and that was the time that you spent on the program. Didn't matter which one you were on. It only mattered that you stayed on. So if you implement the no restart principle, no matter how ugly it is, you have a pizza on Monday night, you come back and do your workout on Tuesday, and try to eat well on Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning you fall out the wagon again, but you can't get out with the no restart principle. So by Wednesday night, you're eating well again, or you're exercising again, and it's ugly, right? It's going to be so ugly. You're going to make all these mistakes. You're going to slip up and fall. But if you keep crawling forward and don't think that it has to be, it will never be this pristine thing. Monday was perfect. Tuesday was perfect. Wednesday was perfect. Thursday was perfect. I lost 20 pounds. It will never go like that. But if you can endure this ugly progress without ever being off, without ever quitting, then you'll stay on, and that's the thing that ultimately matters, no matter what diet you're on. So I think we're talking about the same thing here.
We are. Sure. And this is what I think I was research into you. I said to someone, I was like, I don't know how well me and this guy are going to get on. I said, I think we have I think we have very different opinions, but we don't. We absolutely don't. It's the exact same thing.
Right.
I focus more on the mindset stuff. You focus more on the other thing.
Right.
We both know that it's the same. It's the same stuff. Just obviously, you focus on one side. I focus more on the other. But it's the same.
But we're both trying to get the patient or the client to the same point where they're now involved in something that's enjoyable to them, and they don't need us anymore. Almost like a parent, right?
Exactly.
Give them the tools that they need to be off on their own.
What I say is, my clients are Luke Skywalker, and I'm Yoda. I'm just listen. They are the superstars of their show. I'm just the guide. That's all I am. I'm the guide. That's it. I'm not the superstar here. You're not the superstar. We're just the guide. We're the person who's going to give them some information, but they've got to go through that path in their journey themselves. I love you. Again, you've been dropping absolute gold here. And I'm really, really enjoying this conversation, by the way. The energy here is absolutely incredible.
Likewise.
I'm feeling it. I'm enjoying this. Mikey's enjoying the background. Mikey's laughing his head off in the background there. So for me, you're completely correct. It's consistency. And as you said, I've had this with clients before. They get about 3 months in. They go, this isn't just about fat loss, is it? I'm like, no. It's like, I can use this at work, can't I? I'm like,
there you go.
So yeah, you can. I'm like, you figured it out. Because again, you talk about consistency. It's all about consistency. Now,
well, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to stop you. With all due respect.
Hit me. Let's go.
I'm afraid that particular word, consistency, feeds into the problem. I think that people, unfortunately, interpret that word. They hear that word, consistency, and they interpret that as what we're saying is the wrong. I think when people hear consistency, they think we mean same thing every day. No. Be consistent. No. Saying this will be a nice, consistent, uniform, day after day thing. And I feel like that word, we should stop saying that, because I know what you mean. But when we say it, it comes out like that. So then when they're not, when it doesn't go consistently, they say, oh, well, I screwed this up and quit. Right. So it's not so much consistency, I would respectfully argue.
No. You're correct.
It's adherence, right?
Yes, adherence.
It's adherence. It's realizing that, in fact, no matter how inconsistent it might be, and no matter how ugly and unpredictable it might go, if you stay on, if you keep holding on through all of these storms, you will then get to the end, right? If I could provide you a real life example, Alcoholics Anonymous, right? So we write about this in the book as well. Alcoholics Anonymous is this group of people that meet all over the world, right? And they are successful in helping people recover from a disease that they have. And they don't have a leadership structure. You don't have to sign up. It's anonymous. But anyway, reason why I bring it up is because people have tried to understand and analyze why this works. They have this saying in Alcoholics Anonymous: keep coming back. So you'll stand up and you'll tell your story, and I'm here because I want to get better. And then 2 weeks later, you fall off the wagon, and then you have to go back to AA the day after that. The people who ultimately can do this for a lifetime, can fight their alcoholism for a lifetime and be happy and be successful, are not those folks who started on day one and it went perfectly for them every time all the way through. They're the people who keep coming back. No matter how ugly it gets, if you keep coming back. So you want to tolerate inconsistency, embrace it, and stay on the train, and then you'll make a change.
Again, I love it on episodes like this where I say things and my guests call me out on it, because again, it's I knew that you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But this is the point. I like that, because then again, you're completely correct. And now it's like, actually, I need to make sure that because again, I know what I mean when I say that, but then it's like, actually, what do my clients think, or what do people that spot on? Now, when it comes to the word diet, I don't particularly like the word diet. So we're talking about words here. I don't particularly like the word diet, because for me, the word diet implies it's a short-term thing that's going to get a short-term result. So the word diet, why do we use this word, do we think? And why do people think that weight loss is this, oh, I'm going to do this 12-week diet and I'm going to get long-term results? So where's this come from? Because I hate the word diet. I never use the word diet, but it's you use it a lot of times there, but again, using the study, I get that. So I just want to unpick this word, because I know, again, that you are in agreement with this.
For sure.
Let's have a conversation about this.
So the word diet is just driven by industry, right? It's driven by this marketing of a product that will get you where you want to go. Now, whether or not that product is actually going to do that doesn't seem to matter, right? It seems like because again, the goal is different. The goal for a lot of these industry folks is to sell you something. So when they sit around a table, they don't sit around like you and I and talk about what is going to get this patient or this client from where they are now to where they want to be. They don't have that discussion. I'm telling you, because I've sat in on these discussions and I've been shocked, right, about how those conversations go. What they talk about is, what can we get people to buy, right? And there was even a time, I won't mention the company, when I was asked to consult as an expert, right? And I'm sitting in this meeting and they use the term proof of concept. And I think, okay, proof of concept, like here's maybe an exercise program that, and a proof of concept would be, did people lose the weight, right? And I totally was called out on this, that's not at all what they meant. What they meant by proof of concept was, if we put this on the shelf, will somebody buy it? That's proof of concept. If someone bought this, then we've accomplished our goal. That's what we want. So they're not necessarily looking for any kind of particular outcome other than exchange of money. And so diet is a word they love to use because it encompasses this thing that's bounded, like you said, and will result in the transformation that you want, even though most likely it will not. And so that is for sure where that comes from. And those are exactly the people who push and use that term and sort of look to engage these people to buy something that's not going to work, and then they're going to come back again. Now, in fact, there's another article that just came out, you may be aware, recently in the New England Journal of Medicine, that debunked this intermittent fasting fad and compared it to calorie restriction without intermittent fasting, with regular meals. And it was the same. Now, this is now out there 3, 4, 5 years after the intermittent fasting fad hit the airwaves, right? So whoever came up with the intermittent fasting idea marketed it and sold just tons and tons and tons of stuff. And now here we are 4 years later. Oh, intermittent fasting is really no more effective than any other form of calorie restriction. But by now, the people who invented this and threw it out there are millionaires on their yachts, right?
I think the thing with intermittent fasting is it's good for health purposes, isn't it? Like for health. And this is the thing. This thing for me when it comes to anything. What's the goal? Because you've got fat loss. Now, for example, you've got bodybuilders. You've got hardcore bodybuilders. I used to compete and step on stage. They get extreme fat loss. They're very good at it. But is it healthy? No. So you've got unhealthy fat loss. You've then got healthy fat loss, which is what we're trying to get. Healthy fat loss. People eating healthy, getting the fat loss. You've then got eating for health. Now, you can eat and be healthy. That does not mean you're going to get fat loss. And this is where people are like, I'm eating really healthy and I'm not losing any weight. Yes, because you're smashing 5,000 calories of nuts. Yes, nuts are healthy, but you're not in a calorie deficit. So with this here, like when it comes to like intermittent fasting, I've read some research that shows that it's, again, it's not as new as what you're talking about here, that it's good for health purposes. Do I recommend intermittent fasting? Not particularly. But if people don't want to eat for the first couple of hours during the day, awesome, knock yourself out. But for me, what we'll go back to, are you in a calorie deficit by the end of the day? If the answer is yes, I couldn't care what you do, just as long as that's my sort of view on it. Like I don't have a set really thing I do. Again, ketogenic diet, does it work? Yes. Why does it work? It puts you in a calorie deficit. Why do people get such good weight loss results? Because you're depleting muscle glycogen. Now, do you ever want to not eat a carbohydrate again? No. Then why on earth are you doing that? Why?
Right.
Because it's not sustainable. So straight away, even if you do lose 50, 60 pounds, you have no idea how to maintain that eating carbohydrates. So why would you do it? Why would you do it?
Right. So what's the goal, right? And that's what we talked about even in the beginning. What's the goal? And there's a disconnect because people forget what's the goal, right? It's the same people on either side of the bridge that we talked about. The people who are already lean or already in decent shape or already have the body habits they want, that's a different goal. So whatever exercise and eating you're going to do on that side of the bridge is a different goal. If your goal is transformation, if your goal is to go from A to B, then that goal is different. We have to think about how can we accomplish that goal without any tricks. So you say it perfectly. What is the goal? If the goal is to make a change, then that's a totally different goal than to maintain my health. Or one of the places where people talk about intermittent fasting having a particularly good or positive effect on health is this anti-aging science, right? Some of the people like David Sinclair will talk about how intermittent fasting can even turn on some genes to keep you young, right? So my point is that as exactly what you said, I'm just sort of reiterating what you said. What's the goal? If you already have the body habits you want, and you want to turn on some genes that might keep you from getting older, intermittent fasting is great. But we have to keep in mind what's the goal. And if you don't mind, I'd also like to say something about bodybuilding. So when we wrote the Catching, or I keep saying I wrote the Catching Point Transformation. I don't want to be self-aggrandizing, so I always say we, like there was some other person there. So, but when I wrote it in the same spirit as other doctors who knew stuff that the public didn't know, right? So I bring up bodybuilding because except for bodybuilders already knew this, right? They knew about macronutrient thermogenesis. They knew if they focused on protein, that would cause them to selectively lose fat because they were burning calories digesting that protein, right? That's the small faction of our population bodybuilders. They knew that, but everyone else didn't know that. So all Dr. Atkins did was take something that was already known to the medical community and write it in a book, right? Same thing with the South Beach diet and glycemic index. Dr. Atkinson, he just took something that was known and he wrote it in a book for the general public. So that's what I've done with the Catching Point Transformation. It's 2022. There's a lot of things that we know about why people quit their diets and how important it is not to quit and how to get around there and so on, and just wrote it in a book in plain language so everybody can know. And anytime anybody brings up bodybuilding, I'm always reminded of that it wasn't particular. It's not like Dr. Atkins and the Atkins Revolution. It's not like he invented anything, right? This was a known entity. He just wrote it in a book in plain language. So same thing with my book. I didn't invent any of this stuff. I'm just writing it in plain language so the general public can know what we know.
So one thing again, so we've gone on such a massive tangents. I forgot the whole premise of his talking was about why people fail diets. And I've not actually asked you that question once. So you said that.
So why do they fail?
I was like, we've been going for like 40 minutes. I've not even asked him this question once.
But honestly, we've gotten to the crux of at least why not quitting is important, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And why, and you have also talked about the word diet and where our current focus is, right? Our current focus is on these so-called diets, these packages that are shiny and bright and may get us to a new body habit. If we can shift our focus from those shiny packages to why it is that we have failed in the past, right? And there are real reasons why people fail in the past. And this is where you and I are coming at this. We should really team up somehow, because we're coming at this you're coming at it from a mental and mind to psychological standpoint, and I'm coming at it from the body standpoint. So we would combine those two things. But for me, my book and my take right now is about the body part of why people quit, right? Because I've heard so much about how if people could get control of their mind, they could somehow change this outcome. But it was clear to me throughout the years with my own family members and then my own training and my own patients that something was going on in the body that was stopping these people. And they'll try to tell you, right? They'll try, they don't know what the words are, but they'll try to tell you. They'll say, I think something's wrong with my thyroid, or I think my metabolism is slow because I'm cutting my calories, but I can't seem to lose weight. So what is happening is the following. When people cut their calories, their body sees that as a starvation event. And the body then reacts by slowing its own metabolism, saying, hey, we can't afford to burn calories right now because food is of limited availability and we're starving, right? And then the body sends you on food-seeking missions by dumping ghrelin, the hunger hormone, into your bloodstream, and by sending nerve signals to your brain. All of this is really a survival-based response. Go and get some food so that we don't die. And those are real things that happen in the body. They're not psychological things. They're real things that happen in the body that slow people and obstruct them from making that change that they want to make. So there's more, of course, than just the hunger response and the basal metabolic slowing, but all of these things are real and they're measurable in the body. So a large purpose of the book was to write these things so that people knew they were real, right? Because my mom, for example, would try to lose weight. She would feel this resistance, but didn't know what to call it. But as we discussed earlier, over time, she would start to say, well, I guess maybe I'm just a weak-willed person or a bad person, or maybe I just suck and that's why I can't do this, and you'd watch them go down this rabbit hole. It's terrible. So I want people to realize, look, what you're feeling is real. Here's what it's really called. Here's why it happens. And then in the second part of the book, we say, here's how to get around it. But really, I just want people to understand that what they feel is in fact real. And it has to be real, right? How could we have 100 million people fail a diet in 1 year in the United States alone if it wasn't real? So sorry, I went on. I was a little bit long. So what causes people to fail is a real thing that happens in the body. I spell it out all in the book, mostly so people can feel like I'm telling them you were right. You were right. There is something slowing you down. It's not that you're a bad person or a weak-willed person. So don't feel like that anymore. You were right. And then here's how to get around it.
I think, again, you mentioned ghrelin. You've also got leptin as well. So leptin and ghrelin in there. It's also, I think, a key thing with this, the kind of people we're talking about here, you 200, 250, 300 plus pounds people, the amount of inflammation they've got and their cells' ability to communicate is very, very weakened. So there's the whole host of hormonal mess. You've got to think, if you've got that big, you haven't got that big eating healthy, no matter how many nuts you're eating. Like it's going to be from junk food, especially in America. I used to live in America, so I know exactly what it's like, the food thing over there. So it's like poor quality food, poor quality nutrients. The body can't really be doing what it's trying to do. It's like you're not giving it what it needs. But I think it's a really interesting thing here when we talk about bodybuilding. So I read a book that was wrote by one of the top bodybuilding coaches in the world, a guy called Chris Aceto. And it was wrote in, I think, 1992. So I want to basically just sort of say this. I'm not going to say it word for word, but talking about like things catching up. And essentially it spoke about here that when basically people go into these extreme calorie deficits, so the body essentially slows everything down. Exactly what you're saying there. Like their blinking starts to slow, the body basically puts itself into power saving mode, and then ultimately you end up moving less, meaning you burn less calories. So you're better eating more to actually then burn more. So I think this is the key thing here that I want to sort of get into this when it comes to a calorie deficit. Because for me, what fundamentally I think people do, especially if they're 250, 300 pounds, they will cut their calories so drastically, and then they put themselves into this, where actually for me, you've got the sweet spot. So you've got like maintenance calories. And for me, it's trying to get the calories as close to their maintenance as possible, whilst being in a deficit through eating proper nutritious foods that keep them full. So they are in a deficit, but they are staying full and satiated. And then they actually keep their body energized so that they want to go and exercise or walk or do something like that. But the problem is, especially when people fear carbs, they think fat's going to give them a heart attack. They will literally just like, right, let's have a chicken salad. So you actually look at it, most people end up eating about 1,200 calories. And again, if you're thinking, if you're 300 pounds, you're a big human being. You are
Right.
a big fundamental human being, and you're eating 1,500 calories. You're then going to, after the 7, 8, 9, 10 days, your body's going to be like, you need to feed me, but it's not going to say, listen, just go and eat, a good healthy meal. It's going to say, you go and get me that pizza. You go and get me that
eat
burger.
as much as you can, in case this famine happens again, so we don't die.
Exactly. But people, again, this is the bizarre thing. It is known, and no one talks about it.
Right.
It's bizarre.
Right. You can beat it, right? You already talked about how you can beat it. So what you just talked about, how to manage that response and how to keep people feeling good, is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. That focus on that, right? So what you're talking about is how you keep people feeling good and keep people going, right? And once you put the focus on that, now that right there that we just talked about, that little nugget, we didn't talk about how many pounds we're going to lose, or how long this is going to take, or what the name of this approach is. We just want to keep people feeling good, so it's not a miserable experience. Because otherwise, it's like you said, it's like going underwater, and let's see how long you can stay underwater. The longer you're under there, your body's survival signals overcome you, and you're going to come bursting up, right? And the longer you try to hold on to this 1,200 calorie diet, the louder these signals are going to get, and eventually you are for sure going to burst into, say, a pizza joint, right? And then what happens is what we said at the beginning of this discussion. And then what happens is quit altogether. So you see that sequence event over and over and over again.
And I've experienced this as well, and this is a bizarre thing. I've actually experienced these hormones in leptin and ghrelin. So when I stepped on stage, I dieted for 6 months, and I competed 4 times in 5 weeks. So I was very, very depleted. I was very, very not okay. So essentially, I put myself essentially in starvation mode for 5 weeks. When I finished my last show, I came home and I was absolutely ravenous. And I ate and I ate and I ate.
Right.
And I then went upstairs, threw up, and came downstairs and carried on eating. And my dad was like, what the hell is wrong with you? I was like, I don't know. I'm not even hungry. I can't describe it. I literally, it's the most bizarre.
It's such a great example.
Because I was eating. I was like, I am not hungry. My body is physically just thrown up, and I'm still going again because my body was like, you are killing me here. You get some food in you. And it's bizarre.
So how can a regular person, right? You're an elite athlete, and you had insight into what you were doing. How can we ask a regular person on the street, a 40-year-old female who's 220, to get up past what you just described, right? And so we can't, unless we have someone like you who's explaining how to mitigate that response, and you don't get yourself to that point. But to ask someone to overcome that body response that you just described on their own by white knuckling and just being tough, it's a stupid approach. Sorry to speak so strongly. It's a stupid approach. And it's clear that it fails time after time after time. But again, like we said in the beginning, that continued cyclic failure, that just feeds the machine. So the people who are making money out of this, they have no motivation to fix this problem. No. And then in the medical field where I am, we have every motivation to fix this, right? Because that's my job, is to help human beings. But I don't have the voice. I don't have the platform. So I get silenced by essentially just overrun. So that's why when someone like you invites me on a podcast like this, I'm very thankful, because this is my chance to say to people, hear what we're saying here. It's a different way to get you to the end. And like you said, it probably won't cost you almost nothing.
No, it's just, so let's just summarize then, because I'm really cautious of your time. So I know you've got, again, if here it's coming to the evening. I know you're literally just getting started with your day, like mid-afternoon. What advice would you give people then that are looking for long-term sustainable fat loss? Obviously, I want people to buy a book. We get to that in the end about where people can buy that. But for people listening to this right now, they've heard us go on. And again, I genuinely believe that we've just provided a lot of golden nuggets here for people today. Like, it's been genuinely, I can't believe the time, but it's just flown by. But if we could just summarize this for people, so people can finish this episode and be like, right, I kind of now have an idea of what I can do. How would you summarize people being able to actually go about getting long-term sustainable fat loss?
So the very first thing that I would tell folks is to remember that this is going to be a journey. Like a journey, for any other thing that you're trying to accomplish. If you went on with your career and you remember all the times that your career sputtered or that something went wrong for you or you lost this job and how jagged that line was to get you to where you are now in your career, or anything else you might have accomplished. Let's say you had children, and you had this idea that the children were going to be born and you were going to rock them, it'd be so beautiful, and they were going to go to bed. And then what you found out was nothing like that, right? They don't go to bed, they yell, they have problems, people are mean to them at school, and it becomes this very rocky thing. But if your children have grown, say to be 15 or 18 years old, reflect on that journey and what an ugly mess of a journey it was to get to the beautiful place where you are now. Whatever journey people might have like that, keep in mind that this will be the same thing. This will be the same rocky, jagged line. But if you stick with it, like you did for your career or when you were raising your kids or so on, you will eventually get to the end. But you will not get there unless you pay attention to these things that block you. We talked a lot about the metabolic response. You have to be attentive to that. You have to understand how to mitigate that. We talked about hunger. You have to be attentive to that. You have to be able to mitigate that. Otherwise, these signals will beat you. Just like being underwater, eventually you're going to lose that battle and you're going to come to the surface to get air. Your body's survival signals are too strong for you to overcome. So you have to understand them. That's two. There's a third one I'd like to mention, and that's recovery. And if you were a bodybuilder, I'm positive that you're going to agree with me on this. I'm fairly sure. The third one I'd pay attention to is recovery. I think the general person on the street needs to understand that, for example, if you want a flower to bloom, if your weight loss is the blooming of a flower, you're going to bring that flower home and give it some water. What you don't want to do is give it water again in an hour, and another water in another hour, and another one, because you're going to drown it, right? What you need to do is give it some water and then let it go. Let it change in the sunlight. Let it restructure in the sunlight to become something a little bit different. Then give it a little bit more water. But that time in between the waterings, that time in between the exercise bouts, or that time in between your calorie restrictions, that's the time when your body's changing. Right? That's the time that you're allowing your body to reconfigure itself and become this new body that you want. But if you don't accelerate and attend to recovery with things like passive recovery or active recovery, massage, and so on, your body's survival signals will overcome you. So that was a long answer to say two things. One, don't restart. Realize no matter how ugly it is, restarting is not an option. We're going to start one and finish it 2 years down the road. And then two, identify and understand how to get around these things that have stopped you up until now. And once you are aware of those and you attend to those, your outcome will be different.
Absolutely perfect. Like you've summarized that absolutely spot on. This January has absolutely flown by. This has genuinely been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I knew that you wouldn't realize your time. So I thought, well, I'm going to keep us on track here. So where can people find out more information about you? Do you have social media, and where can people find out and buy your book?
Thank you for asking that. I have a website that's drprologo.com, drprologo.com. That has links really to everything. It has links to the book. It has links to any of my social media. And we use all these same principles for other things to deliver compassionate care for people who have cancer, for people who have pain, for people who struggle with weight loss, and on and on and on. So we want to help as many people as we can through transmission of this message that we talked about today. So that's the website, drprologo.com, and thank you for asking that, and also thank you for having me all that you do.
No, you're very, very welcome. It's an absolute pleasure. I'll get Mikey again, as always, to ping that across the bottom of the video, and also all the links will be in the show notes as well.
Good.
Honestly, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the value that you've provided my audience, and thank you for the energy that you brought as well.
It's been my pleasure, friend.
Take care.